Hello, I'm Tari. Welcome to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how to make a rainbow Zulu necklace. I'm going to make this necklace with a choker. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make the choker first. It's just a basic plain choker. I'll do videos with patterns later on. So to start off, I'm going to make a stopper bead. I'm going to be using a stopper bead in this video. So I have my one bead here. My needle came out through this end, so I'm going to put it through this side. And yes, leave a tail. Leave a long tail, a very long one, not too long, but just reasonably long, because it's the same tail you're going to use later on for your beaded ball. So yeah, I'm just going to put my needle through that bead again to make sure my stopper bead does not move when I'm beading. I pull my thread. I'm using a double thread because my thread is thin. You don't have to do so. So my stopper bead is done. I'm going to pick 12 beads. I'm using 2mm seed beads. I have my beads and I'm just going to push them down. Now that I have my 12 beads, I'm going to pick an additional 4 beads. So I'm going to use these 4 beads to 10. So I'm going to count from the bottom, 1, 2, 3. On the 4th bead, that is where I'm going to put my needle through. And I pull my string. Now I'm going to pick 3 beads and I'm going to count my beads again. So from where I left off, my needle came out through this bead, so I start counting from the next one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. On the 4th bead, that's where I'm going to put my needle through. Put my needle through and I pull my string. And now I'm going to pick 3 beads again. And I'm going to put my needle through the very last blue bead that is right there at the top. So now that I'm at the top, I'm going to turn. And I'm going to turn with 4 beads. I've picked 4 beads. And I'm going to put my needle through this bead in the center. Now I'm going to pick 3 beads and I'm going to put my needle through this bead here, the one that is right there in the middle. That's the one to use. I pull my thread. Okay, that's the trouble with double string. There. Perfect. Now I'm going to pick 3 beads again and I'm going to put my needle through this bead in the middle. So always you skip this bead, you go for the one after it. I put my needle through and I pull. Now it's time to turn, so I need 4 beads. So as you can see, I only pick 4 beads when I'm turning. Now I'm turning and I'm going to work going upwards. That's the only time I pick 4 beads when I'm in the middle, I pick 3 beads in the middle, and at the top here I pick 3 beads. Only when I'm turning do I pick 4 beads. So that's just it. So simple, right? So simple. Going to pick more beads. So now you just keep doing this. You work going up. When you're at the top, you pick your 4 beads. You turn with those 4 beads and you work going down until you have the desired length for your choker. When it's long enough to go around your neck or the size that you want, if you're making it for someone else, then we'll move on to the next step. So it's just the same thing over and over again until your choker is long enough. See, I'm already making progress. Going to pick 3 again. And there, yeah, so easy, so simple. Yeah, so you just keep doing that until it's long enough. So I have one that is quite lengthy. That is the length that I want to work with. So now when you're right there at the end, you're going to take your needle, you put it through these 2 beads, you pull the thread, you put your needle through those 2 beads, I want to come out right here so that I can put my beaded ball. And there, I'm already there where I want to be. I pull my thread. So I'm just going to pick a few beads. I'm going to pick 4 beads. And then I'm going to take my pearl bead, so there. Now I'm going to cover this pearl bead with seed beads. So I'm going to start off by picking 5 beads. I have my beads. Remember, my needle came out through this end, so now I'm going to put my needle from the bottom and I pull my string and make sure that there isn't any loose string on this end or just here where the pearl bead starts, where it's sitting. You shouldn't leave any loose strings, just hold it in place. Now I'm going to pick 5 beads again. My needle came out through the top, so now I'm going to put my needle from the bottom going up, and I pull. So yeah, that's how it goes. Very easy. Now that I have 2 rows, I'm just going to push them to one side. It becomes easier to hold them in place, and I'll pick more beads. I'm going to pick 5 beads and I add them on. So I'm going to keep picking 5 beads to cover my pearl bead, and with each new row I just add it on to the other rows and I hold them in place. I hold my thread tight so that it doesn't move. So I'm going to keep doing that until my pearl bead is covered. At some point I may reduce the number of beads that I'll be picking, so I'll see how it goes. So this is the progress that I've made. I'm just going to reduce the number of beads that I'm going to pick to fill up the small gap that I have here. The number of beads when it comes to covering a pearl bead will always differ depending on your pearl bead size and also the size of the beads that you're using to cover it. So there isn't a fixed number. You just do sort of like a trial and error and see how it goes. So now I'm just going to pick 4 beads to just finish off covering this pearl bead. And there. So yeah, my bead bowl is done. It's time to move on. So now I'm just going to, my needle came out through the top part, so I'm just going to put my needle through the beads that are already sitting there on the bead bowl. And pull. And now the other 3. Oh, these are 5. Okay, so the other 2, just to make sure everything is neat and in place. Now that I'm at the bottom, I'm going to put my needle through the pearl bead out. There. I'm just going to make a few knots at the top. I'm going to make another one just by putting my needle underneath these strings that are already there, and then I put my needle through the loop that is formed when you do that. This loop, I put my needle under it and pull. There. Done. So now I'm going to take my needle and put it through the pearl bead and through those 4 beads that I picked earlier. And then I pull my thread out. There. Now that I'm on this end, I'm going to put my needle through these beads so that my needle comes out through here. There. So yeah, my thread is perfectly positioned. On the other end, you're going to do the same thing that we did on this end here. First of all, you need to get rid of this stopper bead here. You just pull the strings, remove the stopper bead, and then make some loops to go hand in hand with this. So just leave this thread like that. Just leave it for now, and you go on to this end to make your loop. So I'm going to undo these strings. Okay, almost there. Okay, there. So now that I have removed the stopper bead, I'm going to thread this onto a needle, and I'm going to maneuver through the beads until I'm right here at the center, and then I will make loops. Right, so it's the same thing that I did the first time. First through these two beads, and I pull my thread, and then now through these beads, and I'm already at the center. And now I'm going to pick beads for my loops. So I picked 41 beads for my loops, 13 for the first loop, 2 to separate the loops, and 26 for the second loop. So I'm just going to put my needle through these two beads. I pull my string, and I'm just going to test out to see if my loop is big enough for my beaded ball, and it can go through. So that's great. So now I'm going to pick 13 beads to complete this first loop. I have my beads ready, and now I'm just going to put my needle through that bead where my needle came out through when I started doing the loop. So I'm just going to put my needle through that bead. I pull my thread, make sure it's tight, and before I go any further, I'm going to test out this loop and see if it's big enough for my ball, my beaded ball. And yeah, it is big enough. So from here, I'm going to put my needle through these two beads, and then I'm going to make a knot by putting my needle underneath the threads, and then putting my needle through the loop that is formed when you do that, and I pull. Make sure the knot goes all the way to the bottom and pull tight. I'm going to put my needle through 2 more beads, and I'll make another loop. So you can make as many loops as you can, maybe 3 or 5. When you're satisfied that it's secure enough, then you can stop. But I think, yeah, 3 to 5 should be good enough. So I'm just going to make my last knot here. And I pull. All right, so I don't need this string anymore, so I'm just going to cut it short. I will neaten everything when I'm done, but for now I go back to this string that I left over here, and I'm going to start adding beads for the piece going downwards. Now we start doing the rainbow effect.